Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to check out ZBCN's price chart and see what is going on in the short term. And unfortunately, what we talked about in the previous video seems like that it's playing out right now. But before we get into all that good stuff, as per usual in every single video, at first we are going to remind ourselves why Zebec is actually such a solid project and why as we go down and down and down. Personally, again, that's just my strategy. You can have a different one. I absolutely respect it. Personally, from my POV, any kind of move down, it's just going to be a buy the dip opportunity. So, are we ready? Let's dive in and see what is going on. And this clip was actually published yesterday by Zebec's account. And I think this is actually one very important thing that sets Zebec apart from almost every other crypto project, because most teams spend years and years and years trying to build a user base from scratch. But Zebec actually looked at all this and said, well, okay, if we can buy it, why should we actually build it? And this, in my view, is really the part that changes the whole long-term picture for Zebec and brings the ultimate goal, which again, this is just a speculation. I don't really have any actual evidence for it, but I think their ultimate goal might be getting acquired by a massive player. This, in my view, is going to bring the ultimate goal like way closer than you think. So if you watch this clip, the first thing that Simon points out is something called a reverse acquisition strategy. And normally big traditional companies absorb small crypto startups, but this time with ZBCN, it's actually the opposite, because Zebec, as a crypto native company, actually bought real US payroll company called Paybridge, and they didn't do it like recently. No, this I think happened about 21 months ago, and that is like, in my view, a big deal, because getting real world licenses and bank relationships is like really hard if you are a new project, specifically even like a new crypto project, and you want to get connections and start your business. Now, instead of waiting years and years for approval, well, essentially Zebec just bought a company that already had every single thing in here. We are talking about years of compliance in Paybridge, permissions, infrastructure, all of that essentially came in one simple shot. And from day one, Zebec got access to systems that most crypto projects cannot even approach. Then we got the charter school angle, and Simon actually talked about it a little bit, and he mentioned that they have grown into one of the largest payroll providers for United States charter schools. And this is actually, in my view, like a bit of a smart niche to dominate, because schools are very much stable, and we are not talking about a company when, for example, in times of a recession might actually go out of business, and as Zebec, you're just going to completely lose the revenue from that company. No, we are talking about schools that are basically always going to be there, and also they have very much predictable funding and predictable payroll cycles. And that means Zebec in here gets a very steady stream of transactions every single month, not from crypto hype, but from real salary payments, something actually very much real in the world, which builds a very strong foundation that doesn't really depend on market conditions. And this, my friends, is actually one very important reason for why I like projects like Zebec. Personally, and again, this is my own strategy, I would like to invest in projects that are working outside of the crypto market, and whether their chain is active or not doesn't really depend on whether we are having some hype in the market or not. And Zebec definitely checks that box. And Simon also, when it came to schools, talks about teachers themselves, and he said when these schools use Paybridge/Zebec for payroll, all the teachers automatically end up on the platform, and they're not really coming because they are crypto fans. No, they just want to get paid, simple as that. But once they are already inside the system, Zebec can offer simple optional features like, I don't know, let's say converting part of their paychecks into a stable coins, or maybe even using like a debit card with rewards. There's essentially no onboarding struggle in this process. No, for example, download this application or maybe learn this wallet. None of those nonsenses. And the users are already there. It's very important to understand that. Now, Another very important point that Simon mentioned in here is the flywheel effect, because although this might actually sound a bit small at first, but he says in the long term, it actually matters quite a bit because teachers are trusted in their communities, and when they use something regularly, people around them tend to view this as safe and very much normal. So if a teacher gets part of a salary in a stable coins or maybe uses Zebec card, well, it quietly builds social confidence around digital assets. And over time, again, not in a span of one night, over time, these small interactions pushes crypto away from the old high-risk image into hopefully something practical. And personally, I don't really think this is going to be necessarily such a big deal, because who are the community around the teachers? You know it, mostly students, and I don't really think they have a lot of money to invest in the crypto market. I mean, let's be honest, most of you guys that are watching my channel, I think you are somewhere between 35 to 44, basically the same age as me. And I think it is safe to say that the majority of you guys are not really in a school community, not that anything is wrong with that. Now, in terms of benefits of this reverse acquisition strategy from a business angle, in my view, Zebec in here actually gains a couple of very important advantages, and this is like a massive deal. The first one, of course, is going to be customer acquisition, because instead of putting a lot of money on ads and hoping that people are going to sign up, I'm not saying that there's like anything wrong with this strategy. In fact, Zebec actually has a solid partnership with Uphold, and if you are a fan of basketball, which I am, in a lot of games, you do actually see Zebec ads, which is definitely not that bad, but it's really, in my view, nice that beside this strategy, you are also going to have another one that is going to bring thousands of active workers with almost no marketing cost, which is exactly what these guys are doing, and we love that. Then there's also the stickiness of the payroll business, because again, I'm gonna say it in every single video. One of the very important reasons for why I am a big fan of a company like Zebec is because payroll systems aren't really something that companies switch casually. No, once a school, or let's say any other company, is going to choose a provider, changing it is going to take a lot of time and paperwork, and let's be honest, nobody really wants to do that. And that means, well, companies that are moving to Zebec are likely to stay there for years and years and years, unless we are going to have some sort of an issue, and we don't really have it right now. And also, once payroll flows through Zebec, they gain room to offer more products. And those products can be, for instance, I don't know, maybe remittances features, maybe debit cards, saving options. All of these are going to become natural add-ons because the money is already passing through their systems. And this is, in my view, a very strong position that lets them capture more value from each user without really forcing anything on them. So overall, what this whole reverse acquisition strategy is showing to you, in my view, is that Zebec is not really trying to survive on hype. No, they are operating more like a proper fintech company that is buying real revenue, real users, and real infrastructure. And that, I believe, gives them a very solid safety net and a long runway, even during tough market conditions. And if the market is not really going to understand this, and for example, we are going to have a bear market, which in Zebec is also going to go down as much as other altcoins, well, from my POV, that's just going to be more and more buying opportunity, because I do not believe that such low prices for Zebec is going to be really sustainable. And trust me, I am going to buy the dip big time at that point. So overall, in my view, Zebec in terms of fundamentals is definitely on the right direction. Now, let's move to the charts, because something interesting is happening, and not necessarily in a good way. And I think we actually talked about this subject in the previous video as well. You see, if you remember the last time that we talked about Zebec, let's actually go real quick on H1 time frame. The last time that we talked about ZBCN, I think we were right around these areas, and the idea was that, well, we're not necessarily looking optimistic based on this move on the upside, which in it finding an impulse might actually be a bit of a challenge, indicating that we are going to have a move on the downside. And we said it specifically, we are going to get a move down, but I don't know, maybe let's hope that we are not really going to get a break of this level, because under here we don't really have a whole lot of strong supports. And what are we doing right now? You might be able to say that maybe I don't know. This is like our initial break followed by a pullback, and now we are having a continuation of the move down. But I would like to suggest, you know what, let's just give this thing 24 to 48 hours to play out. And at that point, if we ended up still being under this important level, well, maybe this level is actually unfortunately broken. Now, something else actually happened recently that really broke my heart in Zebec, because if I just go on H4 time frame, okay, you see, in Zebec, I was really hoping that in these areas, I'm going to be able to say the bottom is in. And for example, this initial bounce is going to be a 5-wave followed by a correction down, and then we are going to have a move on the upside. But unfortunately, as you can see, during this phase down, this specific move on the downside, we actually took the lows in here, and that means we are not allowed to, from this point moving forward, consider this 1-2 structure, suggesting soon we're going to have a massive move up into wave 3 and 4 and 5. Now, let's just zoom out a little bit more. You see, in the mid to long term, my primary scenario in Zebec says that maybe this is 5-wave up into an A leg, according to like the most pessimistic scenario between all the bullish ones, followed by a correction for wave B, possibly to about this point, and then another move on the upside into our C leg. And I was like, well, okay, for the sub waves of our wave C, we must have a 5-wave, and hopefully this is going to be like 1, 2, and then big move up into wave 3, 4, 5. Now, granted, right now at least we can still argue this 1-2 scenario is in play, but if we end up going down a little bit more, and in this phase we end up taking this importance low about, let's say, 0.23 of a cent, well, unfortunately that 1 or 2 scenario is also going to get invalidated, and it doesn't necessarily mean that in Zebec we should be like overwhelmingly bearish. No, I don't really think it means that. It just means, in my view, that the recovery phase unfortunately is going to take some time. Why is that? You see, if you want to say, for instance, we're going to have our final low around this area, maybe this is like a very important support, then okay, fair enough. Off of the lowest low in this region, you have to be able to find a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave on the upside. Excuse me, what just happened? My mouse glitched a little bit. There we go. Followed by this 5 wave up, you're going to have a move down in form of a correction structure. And this whole process is going to take some time. And if we end up having this bullish setup, then you can expect a rather sharp move on the upside, because in terms of Elliott waves, again, on a higher degree, the idea is that this is going to be 1, this is going to be 2, and then we're going to have a good move into wave 3, 4, 5. And wave 3 is known to be quite a strong and sharp move on the upside. So if in Zebec we end up going down and take this important low, at that point, once more, we have to consider building a bullish setup. And by that, you know it, we are talking about 5-wave up followed by a correction down, and this might actually end up taking a couple of weeks, if not even a couple of months, which is really annoying. But hey, guess what? The market doesn't really care about you, I, or for that matter, anybody's feelings. The market does what it does. We are just here to analyze it. I'm just going to keep saying this in every single update so people can manage their expectations. Bottom line is this: in terms of fundamentals, I think every single move down that we are getting, especially with the recent deep move down that we are having, from my POV is going to be a buy the dip opportunity. Now, you may have a different strategy, and I would actually highly suggest to not really listen to me. You should do your due diligence, come up with your own conclusion, and then if you think that, okay, you know what, Zebec is actually a good project with solid fundamentals, then you can watch some YouTube videos, maybe not even mine, if you are believe that I am full of BS. So any kind of move down from my POV is going to be a buy the dip opportunity for the mid to long term. Having said that, in the short term, things are not necessarily looking optimistic, because it seems like that we want to get a break of this very, very important support area. And if we continue our move down for another 5%, and I do think that we are going to actually continue our move down, I'm going to tell you in a bit why. And in that move, we end up taking this low as well. Well, that can be, I guess, another very important bearish sign. And at that point, you have to say either our move down is going to continue, or let's just not be that pessimistic. Let's say right in here, we are going to hit the lows. Even in that case, building a bullish setup, meaning having an immediate bounce followed by a choppy correction, is going to take a bit of time. So manage your expectations. Don't really expect a rather sharp move on the upside in Zebec effective immediately. So If it doesn't happen, you're not really going to be surprised. And if it is going to play out, well, okay, we all are going to be pleasantly surprised. Now, here is my final point. I promise you, I'm not really going to bore you with this anymore. You see, in terms of classic DA, meaning support and resistances, I guess there can be some sort of a support area right in here. There we go, between, let's say, 0.2 of a cent to about, let's just do this and adjust the higher band, there we go, to about 0.23 of a cent. So as you can see, even this thing suggests our move down in Zebec can continue for another 10 to 15%. But then if we are going to ignore this thing and we are going to break this one as well, at that point, expect some decent move on the downside. And again, although from my POV, that's just going to be a buy opportunity, overall, it might actually end up being a bit frustrating. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in ZBCN's chart. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the market, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.